Good morning, all. It's Annie Fisher from the Linux Foundation. I set up this Zoom call for you. I just wanted to pop on to let you know that if you're on the phone, *6 will mute and unmute you while you're on your call. That's
cool.
all.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Ken Owens here. How are you?
Hey Ken, how's it going?
Hi there.
All right, I'm on the road right now, so I'll be on my computer in about 15 minutes. Is Doug on?
Yeah, this is Doug.
Hey Doug.
Hey.
So we'll give people a few minutes to join, and then we'll start kind of going over the different sections that we worked on over the last couple of weeks.
Yep. Looks like we've had some good progress.
Yeah, I was really happy to see the documentation.
For those of you on the call, go ahead and add your name to the attendee list. You can.
Hey, hi, guys, it's Sebastian. I'm pretty new to this group. I followed the discussions, but it's the first time I joined, so I just wanted to say hi.
Hey, Sebastian.
نمت له والله. شنطتي كان واتساب وقام Slack.
So Doug, I'm not on the Uber conference. How many people do we have on?
We have 8 people, including the CNCF, so really 7.
Okay. I will give it a couple more minutes.
Hello, everyone there?
Hello.
Yes. Hello.
It's Kathy. So I just want to make sure I'm joining the serverless meeting. Is that meeting?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct. That's this meeting. Welcome.
Okay, thank you.
So I think it's 8 after, so we're going to get started. There might be a few more people to join still. We met 2 weeks ago. This is Ken, and Doug is also on the call, and we sort of wanted to kick the meeting off a couple weeks ago and get us started on documenting a position paper. And so we kind of broke it into a few different sections, and over the last few weeks, we've had several attendees kind of contributing to those sections. And so what I thought we'd do today is just sort of start off with talking about the progress we've made to date on those sections. And Doug, if you don't mind, while I'm driving, if you could just sort of bring up the different sections and talk about what's needed next on them. And then when I get in front of my computer in a few minutes, I can help out more.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's see. Going through the various sections. The first one is the terminology section. Let's see. That was you, Ken, and myself. We do have a starting list in there right now. For the most part, the list was taken from the notes that we all gathered over the last, several weeks. An initial description of each one was put in there. There were a couple that I wasn't 100% sure what people meant by, so I kind of put some question marks there. So I'm looking for some feedback on those. But other than that, I think for the most part, it's in a position where I wouldn't mind getting some feedback from the rest of the group on ways to either expand what was written there or to flat out change what was written there if you think it's wrong. But that's about it. Any questions?
Yeah, definitely. Everyone, feel free to add to the definitions, especially the ones that we have question marks by.
Yeah. All right. The next section is Mark with scope. Mark, I believe you're on the call. Mark, you on mute?
I think I'm off mute now.
There you go.
Yep.
Awesome. So the scope section of it was define scope of the space as it exists today. In other words, today's offerings. So I put together an initial outline. I hope that this is what everyone had intended for this section to be. I wanted to give a little bit of history. I'm not exactly sure the full history, so if people want to help out with that one. And then I tried to describe, what is currently available in public cloud serverless, open source serverless, the various open source services, and then frameworks, which is more along the lines of like Chalice and serverless.com and Zappa. So it's really to give some exposure to what is going on within the community around serverless. Is that what the group intended for this section to be?
Yeah, personally, I think it's a great list. My only question was, do you want people to start adding information in there relative to the various features that each one supports, so people can differentiate between them, or is that not the intent?
That would be the intent for me, but I didn't want to, because we have vendors for the various public cloud and open source products. I didn't want to have to speak for them, and so if they want to help guide what they think is relevant within, I don't want one project to have 3 pages worth of information and others not have any. But I think that there's find some commonality of what we think is relevant within each project, and try to expose how they are differentiated or similar in various manners.
Yeah, I think it's sorry.
No, it's one of the things that myself and Orit tried to do in the spec document is actually try and see how we normalize the different solutions. We actually pointed out what's happening in AWS, in Lambda, what's going on in Azure, and other solutions to try and, instead of saying, which one does things better or be opinionated, just try and collect and aggregate the different functions from all those things.
Yeah, I think it's good if we can summarize, the features, all these different solutions, what are the key points, and that will be very helpful.
Yeah, because I think a lot of there is an issue of terminology. A lot of people think about serverless as sort of an API gateway with some HTTP. And if you look at the definitions of guys like Azure or Amazon with Lambda, it's a much broader solution that addresses many different use cases. So we wanted to show that there are a broad set of use cases, maybe even things that those guys haven't tapped on yet.
So Mark, are you looking for the rest of the group to start adding their comments and list of things into there, or do you want to do some of the changes first before you get a flood of people commenting?
I would appreciate if people could start adding on to it. Like I said, I don't want to have to speak for some of the vendors, and I think it would be good for us to just have an eye towards consistency across each of the products.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I think I can help with some part. For example, in the AWS, there's Lambda. They also have a step function, which they, I think they announced at the end of last year.
And also Lambda at the edge.
Yeah, exactly. Like the green grass, I think it's much broader scope than than just Lambda, which is just single event triggers, single function.
Yeah, but I think Greengrass and Lambda, although they may have different implementations, one run on ARM, the other one runs on a PC. I think the function, when you develop it, you don't necessarily need to know if it's Greengrass or Lambda in Amazon.
Yeah, that's right. For the Lambda and the Greengrass, I think in terms of functionality, it's similar. Just one is the Greengrass is lightweight, which is because it's running on the edge, right, or IoT side. But in terms of the step function, it's much broader scope than Lambda because it's multiple functions. And as far as I know, there are other source too, because even step cannot satisfy some customers' use cases. So I think there are people who are thinking about developing more comprehensive models to support more comprehensive and more complicated scenarios, like
So step function is So Katie, I think step function is not necessarily specific to Lambda. You can actually invoke workloads in VMs or through external clients. I think it is very close to Lambda, and we need to see what we want to include in the scope of a function. I totally agree with your general line that workflows are sort of an enhancement to functions, but we want to know where to draw the lines.
Yeah.
Maybe let's
okay.
start more focusing with on functions and enabling features in a function to create a workflow, or like daisy chain the outputs and inputs, etc. But we can defer the actual workflow discussions of what defines a workflow and all that to a later stage.
Actually, I think that probably it's good, we define in this scope here, because it's already something available, and it addresses quite a lot of use cases which the customer need.
Okay. Anyway, maybe we can open it as a separate document. I've written internally a complete summary of step function. I can use some of that to to open up the document.
Perhaps one of you guys could send a note to the mailing list to get some feedback from the rest of the group before you spin up another document, just to get some feedback.
Okay, you say send a document, a link to a document.
Well, either that or have this discussion on the mailing list, just to get other people's feedback to see whether it warrants being a separate document or should be included in one of the existing sections.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think it probably is good to include this document. I saw there's an open Lambda, and then we can just add a section to describe that, and maybe add that link inside this document if there are links. There are multiple links.
Okay.
Oh, I think probably a way is someone write that. Well, I can help to write that, and then people give comments.
Okay.
Does that sound good? Okay.
Yep. All right. Any other questions?
So I'll keep an eye on the document and try to make sure that we have content being added.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Mark. Any other questions or comments from Mark? All right. The next section is use cases. Do we have Daniel, Orit, or Yaron on?
Yeah. So we focused on the spec, but we can easily add a bunch of use cases. I think Doug added a bunch, or someone.
I don't think it was me.
Oh, okay.
Let me see. Hold on. At least I don't remember doing that.
No, it was Daniel. Daniel added some use cases.
Yeah, Daniel can't make the call today. He is technically on vacation, so hopefully he's doing that.
We can fill up more use cases next week.
Yeah. Okay. So hold on a sec.
Yeah, I think it's a good start. It just needs to be fleshed out a little bit more.
Okay.
Is the format of the documents okay? Do we want to change the format? So the organization?
It seems like a good start to me, but to be honest, I haven't looked at it too thoroughly. I'm just scanning it right now.
Yeah, I think it's a good start. Maybe if someone has more categories of use cases, can update it or give comments.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at least it's a start. So the next one was positioning. Ben, Daniel, or Kathy?
Yeah. I think Daniel put in something and then I update it. So we have, describe, what's the relationship between I think the Kubernetes part, container orchestration, PaaS, and the serverless. So I added a section of, the description of serverless, and then also updated the benefits.
What's interesting is I'm Yeah, well, what's interesting is I'm scrolling through this document, and I really like the way it's laid out. I think I love all the bulleted list of different sections for each one. It kind of reminds me of the scope document that Mark is putting together, because it does kind of talk about each of the various projects, or many of the various projects out there, and what the benefits of each one are and their take on it. And I'm wondering if at some point this means we may want to sort of merge these two.
Yeah, the way we look at it is that you do want to separate, just because the points that Kathy brought before, you know, like what we're building is also designed to be a binary that can run on a Raspberry Pi, and not necessarily with a full-blown orchestration. Or also for dev and test, you may want to run your function, you know, with some mocking framework. So I think sort of Kubernetes is a way to orchestrate a bunch of functions, but it's not necessarily the only way. And also, I don't think we want to alienate the other orchestration platforms. So.
Yeah, that's true. I'd just like to avoid duplication of text, but yeah, we can worry about that later. Okay, but that looks like a really neat start.
You know, something that occurs to me is perhaps positioning needs to go before the scope, just in terms of flow, but we can decide that later on. In other words, being able to describe how the differentiation is between serverless and paths, et cetera, would set the stage for then going deeper into what serverless is all about.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we can go into deeper. And I think this document is more on the, you know, describing the different abstraction level, right? Like container orchestration is the lowest level, and then we have paths, and then now we have serverless. But yes, I agree with, you know, the comment. We can go into deeper describe the, you know, what is serverless, right? Because it's like different people has different perspective. Like someone mentioned before, someone thinks serverless is just an API gateway with HTTP. But actually, I personally think it's much broader scope than that.
Right. Okay, so since Daniel's not on the call, Kathy, let me put you on the spot. Do you think this, what do you think the text that's in there right now is ready for people to start commenting on, or do you think it needs to be reworked a little before you start getting people really looking at it?
I would think probably give another week, and then, you know. But of course, I think anyone is welcome to comment, but it's not like, you know, very ready yet from my perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when we say scope, what do we really mean? Is that the scope of the working group work, or scope of what serverless is?
You talk about the scope document itself?
Yeah, when we say scope, what do we mean?
I'll let Mark speak. My interpretation was it was sort of the scope of what serverless or function as a service means.
Yeah, for scope,
Yeah.
I meant the section that is entitled scope. That's what I was intending, was we could switch the ordering of positioning and scope.
I really like that idea.
Yeah.
I might just do it. It's granted
Okay.
it's only in our little table of contents thing on the agenda, but
Yeah,
I like
because
it.
there may be another scope, which is, as a working group, what is our scope? What are we trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think we talked
Oh,
about that last
yes.
week, right? That's, yeah, initially it's basically the white paper, but then as sort of a tail end of our work is to determine what is the next step, right? Do we just stop there? Do we look to start some more technical project after here? Do we look for some level of interoperability or standardization to happen someplace? You know, we haven't quite figured that out yet. We do have a document that lists potential, what we call phase 2 work items. And that's where we're going to start gathering ideas for potential next steps for us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so back to the positioning section itself. Any other questions or comments on that one? Okay, the last section then is spec. Orit, Kathy, or Yaron?
Yeah, the spec. I think, you know, I don't know who put the first the baseline description for that? Is it Daniel or is it Yaron?
It's already me and your own. We started with the spec about the functions and what we think function should be defined with its metadata and input and output and stuff like that.
Yeah, one of the key things we want to see as sort of as an outcome is, when the user writes a function, he knows what the function is, what it defines. Also, when someone operates a function, if someone is building now a new development tool or a build tool, to know what it is. So we try to take from the different implementation, what does Amazon, for example, defines as a context or event, or Azure or others. And I welcome, IBM and others to start adding things that you think are, and then, when we'll, something that potentially we can do in the future, if we go into, I know standardization is a dirty word, but maybe create a way for people to write functions once and then work in different frameworks. So if we have a definition of we have some consensus among multiple people, what does it mean, event? Or what does a context constitutes of? At least as a basic, not, obviously every vendor will have his own interpretation and extensions. It can make the user life simpler. So we've tried to categorize functions, event sources, the life cycle of a function, what do you do with a function. There are small things that, whether people did them just for time to market reasons, or I listed some of them, like, when you publish a function, you don't have branching today in any of those solutions. And if you think about the traditional CI pipeline, then you may have an old version that you want to sort of fork and work on. So what do we think about those things? Is that the way that things should be, or maybe people overlook those small things?
Yeah, I added a section to the end of the document, which is user-facing application-specific specification model. I think that's it's important if it would be good if we can provide some generic configuration directives for functions, events, and workflow. So I add something there. Also, I think I add some comments to the previous section because I would not like to just change it. I want to see what other people thought. So especially for the part which has let me take a. Is anyone on that document? So let me scroll it down. Yeah, for the function invocation types, I have some comments. I'm not sure whether this is the right.
Yeah, I just saw them and plan to comment, because, like, you mentioned there's only synchronous and asynchronous, and streaming is quite different than asynchronous because it has an ordering. That's also Amazon implementation. You could see that all the, like, the definition of when a function fails or retries or all that is quite different among those. Something like scheduled event is more like an asynchronous event. I agree with that, but there are some subtleties.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking probably we can rearrange this. Some of the points, because it's just the function invocation types, right? The synchronous, asynchronous. The other can fall into, from that perspective, invocation can fall into that. But in terms like whether each function is we do retry or not doing retry, all that, right? That's also it's orthogonal to synchronous or asynchronous. So I think
it's not. I think that there is a major difference between asynchronous and streaming, so I think that at least those three models. Now within streaming, you could say, okay, CDC stream or Kinesis stream or DynamoDB stream, although they have some subtle differences, or maybe just streaming a CSV file, although they have subtle differences, they still fall under the same category of streaming, but they're not asynchronous event like an email, which is something that doesn't have anything to do with other events.
Yeah, but when you say you say streaming, right? So it consists of. Do you mean it consists of multiple functions, right?
Just I think the best is to go over the Lambda sections. They explain those things quite a bit on the different models. But we can take it offline. If you want, we can have a call.
Okay.
Because we support in our framework all those models, so we know the low-level details of what's the headache of supporting the differences.
Yeah. So my point is, there will be streams, there will be other things, right? But I just feel logically they are orthogonal to synchronous, asynchronous. So they have synchronous, asynchronous inside the streams. If the streams consist, we can take this offline.
Okay.
I'm not saying we should not talk about this. I'm just thinking, from logically, right? We might need to move this to another separate section, which is, other elements of the function or other aspects of the function. It's not the invocation types. That's my point.
No, I understand. Well, let's take it offline because I'll explain how we see those things, and we define the classes and sort of subclasses, if you will. But let's take it offline, and then we'll converge on.
Okay, so maybe we take up another meeting to discuss this, and then come back to the team to to give the update or give the status later.
Yeah, I think another point which may be controversial is the Azure versus Amazon interpretation of how you connect data into a function. And I listed those things around data bindings, which we think are valuable potential features. And I saw you also had a note on that.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. But I think that can be specified in the user configuration. In the user configuration, so how you are going to bind, the data with the event, right? That's like something. It's not just related to a function. It's not just related to an event. It's it's basically it's an event function relationship, right? How you bind those together.
It's not necessarily. It's actually not related to the event, although Azure sort of bundle triggers and data sources into the same definition. And just look at the link that I put there. There's more details in the Azure website. The general idea is that in many cases a function requires access to data. Otherwise it's sort of very minimal function. And instead of handwriting all the, every time you invoke a function, you regenerate the connection to a database, or someone put it in an ambiguous way. There's a way to define it as a platform service, and this way it can be reused across multiple invocations in a sort of more well-defined way. And the other advantages like credentials and other things that could be extracted outside. And also it allows you abstraction. So if sometimes you want to feed the same function from Kinesis, and then you go to an on-prem solution where you have Kafka, then you can change it through the definition, and you don't have to change the code for that. But I suggest that you go and review the link in the Azure, and we could take it, in the same discussion with on the events. I can go into details with you.
Okay. Well, it seems like that. Obviously, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, should there be more comments around things like security keys and tokens, or within the function context, on how various ways of implementing that would be?
Yep. Yeah, I think it's quite a challenging area, and yeah.
Okay. Doug, I have a question for you with respect to terminology. I like within the spec, I like the function invocation types, synchronous requests, et cetera. I don't know whether those should be reflected as well into terminology or not, but not with quite the depth that it is here.
Yeah.
The other question.
Sorry.
The other question I have for you is whether we should add things like runtime into the definitions, and also define what a framework is, because I've seen framework used in quite a different context, such as, an open source project calls itself a framework, whereas I've seen things like serverless as being considered a framework, and they're kind of two different things. One is actually operating the serverless infrastructure, while the other is really just trying to orchestrate up functions.
Okay, well, runtime I think is already in there. Framework is not, so I just added a placeholder for that one to extend those. But I do agree with you that it seems like a lot of the terminology that's defined in the specification document should be either replicated or at least referenced or something inside the terminology section. Because yeah, you're right, there is some overlap there and some good commonality. Actually, what's funny is as I was looking at the specification doc, I started thinking that some of these sections in here should probably be pulled out into the terminology section because they had some great explanations there. But I think a lot of that will kind of shake itself out once we get to the point where we start merging these documents together and we want to remove duplication of text.
Yeah, we dumped a bunch of things into the document. I agree with some of them. And if you want us to change things and you don't really want to do it, just put comments and we'll change the relevant section.
Yeah.
By the way, on the security,
it's really good content.
Yep. Definitely agree with that.
Security, by the way, there is reference to security. For example, you look at the data binding context and function context, because we took some of the definition of Lambda where there is a key and a secret and things like that. So we've embedded it, but there's no reference to what those really mean, like how to conduct the authentication. If you also look at the event context, one of the things that we put out there is the originating, like source identity. If you think about like Amazon Cognito or some, just like you have an API service and the client identity of the guy that invoked the API function, you probably want to pass this over. But there is not a lot of meat in terms of how does the authentication and user authorization happen. So, if anyone wants to add on that, feel free.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on the spec section? Looks like a really good start.
Yeah, I think that spec still needs a lot of work. I think I agree with that. In that spec, we should reference the terminology document to make sure the terminology used in that spec is in sync with what is defined in that terminology spec.
Yep, I would agree. Okay, so are you guys looking for, or do you feel like that section is ready for a fairly thorough review, or do you want to do some more work on it first before people really dive deep?
I don't see a lot of.
I think we need to work out, the baseline better. I think so.
Yeah, at least we need.
Do you think another 2 weeks worth of effort, or are you thinking you need less than that?
Probably another 2 weeks. I think some section need to be rearranged to make it, logically more, more clear. That's my thought.
Yeah, it might make sense, like Doug was pointing out earlier, to move some of the things around as well, to kind of fit them into the right sections they belong in. So.
Right.
And we need more comments, so we'll have a better sampling.
Yeah. I'm in the minutes. I'm taking notes and comment. I'm adding a remark that comments are welcome on all sections, but I'm trying to indicate whether people should do a thorough review now or wait a little while. And on this one, I put down, as you said, Kathy, give it another 2 weeks before people give a very thorough review.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for the sections. Ken, did you want to take the next steps, or?
So I think the next steps are to for everyone, and then we'll send this out in the email as well, to spend the next couple of weeks really updating and commenting and providing feedback on the sections, adding to them, making suggestions if you think we should move parts of them to other areas. And then in 2 weeks when we meet again, let's see if we can sort of target having everything ready for a more thorough review when we meet in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
And as Doug mentioned, right, you can use the document itself to like have conversations, or you can use the mailing list to request to ask questions or make comments.
And if
I think what will happen with that more thorough review in 2 weeks that we start off, we'll probably give that 2 weeks as well to do a more thorough review. When we come back together at that point, I think it's going to be sort of looking at the completeness of the document and maybe some of the terminology used and how do we sort of align the sections so that they flow well together and are not just independent sections. So I think we're about a month away from kind of having our first, we can probably share the draft in 2 weeks, but we're probably a month away from having sort of a mostly complete document for comment.
Maybe people can also add sections that they want to serve as placeholder for things they want to fill out.
Sure.
So Ken, so is it showing like, maybe like if, so I want to make sure I understand this in simple as everyone else. And so we're going to given 2 weeks to finish the first draft. And then we're going to have start review first among this work group people, right? And then we're going to solicit more feedback from the whole CNCF community. Is that how it will go? Or okay.
Yep.
And I think I also heard Ken say with an eye towards looking at combining the sections into a single document.
Right, and making sure the flow is correct between the sections.
Oh, okay. So eventually there will be only one document. Is that right?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I tried to capture that in the agenda minutes, just to make sure I got that right, just so everybody can be on the same page. Okay,
good, yeah. Then I guess probably it needs some time, to combine them together because of the flow and of each stack. But I think it makes sense to combine them. So like each document is a section, right? It's a big section. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
And we sort of laid them out in the sort of looking at the meeting minutes. We kind of laid out each section in order, and we may, like Doug mentioned, we may end up combining or flipping some of those around or breaking them apart and adding additional sections. So it's not 100% set in stone, but the idea is to sort of have at the end one full document with different chapters.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
All right, that's it for the agenda as we have it right now.
Then the only other thing I want to bring up today, Doug, is, based on the work we've done so far, does anyone have a strong feeling on what we should propose to the TOC in terms of serverless? Or do we want to kind of bring that up after we get the position document a little bit more complete in 2 weeks?
Yeah, my agenda in general, not specific to this project, is to try and enable more collaboration between projects, because if you think about serverless, there are a lot of moving parts. Like you have API gateways, you have the runtime portion, you have integration with CI/CD pipelines, you have integration with orchestration. And right now, every project basically implements all those things. But some do a better job on one component and not as good job on the other component. So by trying and define sort of a layering, we can probably drive more collaboration across open source projects, and each one will sort of add his own component. That's one thing. I think the second thing is in terms of user usability, being able to run function on multiple platforms. And for the guys maybe that won't participate in this, working group, we can create shims that are thin enough, so you could basically run one function on 4 different platforms. I think that is a nice aspiration. I don't know if we'll get there, but that's I would like to get there.
I agree with those comments, and I'd also say that if we were in the future able to double click down into like the event data and metadata such that we could provide guidelines for service offerings, open source service offerings, to be able to send events into the various systems, that would allow for more open source services to then be able to interoperate with the functions of the service.
Yeah, another area is a function lifecycle, like submitting a function, creating a function, publishing, etc. I think if we'll create a common model that people could, in some cases just create glue logic to existing frameworks or just write natively to, then we'll enable people to do debug tools, editors, test utilities, etc., to work against one framework instead of creating new startups that all they do is just creating shims for all the different frameworks.
Cool. Sounds very good.
Yeah.
Ken, did you have any other ideas around where this would go?
That was sort of like, you're echoing a lot of what I was thinking. The other thought I had was around, looking at some of the projects that are out there and trying to determine if we wanted to reach out to those projects and start talking to them about looking at joining the foundation.
Yeah, but by the way,
I don't know if you want to do that or not.
I looked at yesterday at another interesting tool. I noticed it has integration with the OpenWhisk and Lambda, like Kube, which is a API gateway, open source.
Yeah.
So that could be yet another thing in the ecosystem that fronts end the function.
So it might be good to kind of start capturing these on the mailing list, and maybe like if you guys have contacts there, let's start trying to maybe reach out to them, and maybe after we finish the position document, we could start talking with some of these projects and seeing their interest in engagement with the CNCF.
I'd also say add these projects into the scope document.
Definitely makes sense to do that. At least it's something we need to kind of keep an eye on and update regularly, I think, but it'd be worth capturing them and continuing to kind of add to that list over time.
Yeah, so I think all
my guess is that the various projects and such might be a GitHub document that then we can take pull requests on at a later time.
I agree.
Yeah, so things like the different Ingress projects for Kubernetes, run Nginx or Kube, or I think there's another company doing it.
Do you think Amazon will be interested in joining this?
I think last week, I don't know if it was Mike, if it was you, or someone else was going to try to reach out to a contact at Amazon.
I had invited someone from Amazon to attend, and I'll try reaching out to him again and see if they have any interest.
Okay, I think that'd be really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about
I can also reach out.
Microsoft, because I think they are involved, especially after days. Are they joining, or?
I can reach out to a Microsoft person about that.
Yeah, we have the OpenWhisk covered pretty good, I think, as well. So we can make sure that we pull that into the discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can also reach out to Amazon too. I have some contacts there.
I definitely am a fan of the more we get involved now at the early stages, the better.
Yeah.
All right, any other topics? I guess we're
Thank
done
you
then.
guys for your time. Is nobody had any issues, I'm assuming, with the Uber conference and getting access today?
The only comment I have was since some people didn't have the invite on their calendar because the other one got canceled.
Actually, I have, yeah, so when I joined, I thought on my calendar, it said this event has been changed. And then, so I tried calling from the numbers, the toll-free numbers and the US number, it does not work. But when I call through this link, the Zoom link, it eventually works.
Okay.
So could someone, so Ken, are you the one who sent this Outlook, this calendar Google invitation?
It came from, there's like a public CNCF calendar that I added to my Google Calendar. So that's how I got access to the invite. So I'll send out some instructions on that, but I'll also add the Zoom information to the to a GitHub repo where we talk about the next meeting and the agenda for the next meeting. So I'll add the Zoom data into that as well.
Oh, so yeah, I think it would be great if you add this meeting into into our Serverless web page, the calling in for all those information. And also, I don't know why it shows up on my calendar that this event has been changed. Maybe do you mind sending out that invitation again so that I can update it on my Outlook? Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, thanks for your time, everyone. Look forward to collaborating over the next couple of weeks to get this document to a draft state, and looking forward to working with you in 2 weeks.
Good.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
same here.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.